Wow, you guys really liked my last video on analog EQs, so I've decided to follow it up with a question many of you have posted to me.
If you don't like analog modeled EQs, then what about analog modeled compressors? Aren't they bullshit too?
The short answer, no, but watch to find out why. But first, great news! I've launched my YouTube memberships. You can support the channel directly and help me grow Pale Blue Dot into a sustainable channel. There are 3 tiers to choose from with things like early ad-free videos, exclusive badges and emojis, mixed feedback, private live streams, and more. Hit the join button next to the video, or check out the link in the description for more information.
But it's only authentic if it says members only right here.
And don't forget to use my affiliate links and comment in the video below. So you ask me, if you hate analog model EQs, what about analog compressors? Can't you prove they're all the same too? Well, here's the thing. They're just different. An EQ is basically a volume knob for a certain frequency. And unless you rig it up differently, it's just a static effect, and you can null it with any other filter. But compressors are dynamic. They react to changes in level, and there are many parameters that affect how quickly that happens, and how much attenuation is applied, and how long it lasts for. And that's just the beginning. You're simply not going to be able to null a dynamic signal like this. There's no point. But you can approximate the behavior of famous compressors, and that's been the holy grail in the market for decades. Then it's just a matter of how closely you think they match the original, if you've ever even used one. I think most of us haven't. Or simply if you just like the sound of the damn thing. And then we need to consider all the different types of analog compressor topologies, like FET, or field effect transistors, made legend by the revered Urey 1176, which uses transistor circuits to mimic how tubes and valves react to signals. Known for being extremely fast, bright, and quite dirty at high settings. VCA, or voltage-controlled amplifier. The most famous models are the SSL G-Bus Comp or the DBX 160. They use a control signal to determine if gain reduction is needed, and are reputed to have a clean, predictable sound, but can also sound great when pushed hard. Opto, or optical compressors, use a photocell and an actual light bulb to determine gain reduction. The legendary LA2A is a great example of this. Different photocells and different light bulbs will change how the compressor reacts. And the point of all this is, these are all characteristics and timings that can be approximated in software, and will make that model compressor sound different. And this is aside from any saturation or non-linearities that developers sometimes add, which I think is mostly irrelevant. You can get an edgy tone from a compressor merely by squashing the dynamic range of the signal. You don't need a soupçon of arbitrary distortion added to make it sound cool. Now you can take a perfect sine wave and see the compression characteristics. Plugin Doctor amplifies the signal here briefly, and that gain difference is what the compression will be applied to. We'll be able to see how quickly the attack and release work on this signal. Let's use Slate 1176 clone. What we see here is an extremely fast attack time, like we're talking microseconds. And then at the end here, it takes about half a second for the release to attenuate back to the original level. Now let's compare with Softtube's excellent VCA compressor, which is their DBX 160 clone. And here we see a wildly different attack characteristic. Even if I take the attack on the DBX all the way down, we still get a pretty fast attack, but there's a bit of a slope down to the attenuated signal. This may give you the impression of cleaner compression. And of course, the release is much different here. It snaps back to the unattenuated level more quickly than the 1176, with a bit of a slope on that too. Let's hear how these actually sound, shall we? That's very pleasing to the ears. I love how it smooths everything out, and the drum transients are flattened, but still have impact. And the body of the drums just feels thicker overall. And now the VCA. That's a big difference. The VCA simply has a longer attack, and when it's pushed like this, the drums get really snappy, almost like a transient designer. Like, I probably want to use a clipper after this to not let the transients peak out of control. And the body of the drums doesn't sound quite as thick as the 1176. That could just be my ears. It's a good sound though. I can see how the DBX 160 is a solid choice for snare drums and kick drums and mixes. Now, the cool thing about the modern era is that you don't even need to have an analog emulated plugin to get that thick compression you crave. There are tons of free or affordable compressors and limiters that can really crush the signal in ways that are reminiscent of analog gear, without claiming to be anything specific, such as Audio Damage Rough Rider. Or D16 Frontier. Both of these are free. Or my default drum compressor, Renaissance X. Yes, I know it's not made for drums, but it has amazing program-dependent compressors inside that really make things sound huge with minimal attack times. Now, do these sound better than your average stock EQ? Let's try Cubase's default compressor, which I quite like, but doesn't stand up for being pushed hard very well. To me, Cubase Compressor was the least interesting there. Now, this is very subjective, and I think there's a ton of confirmation bias to overcome here. But I think these analog modeled or inspired compressors sound better, especially on the low end, because a lot of thought has been put into them to react like their hardware counterparts, in a musical way. You can hear a difference in a way that I think would propagate across an entire mix. I would reach for the Slate 1176 over the Steinberg compressor any day. So ultimately, what's my point here? Analog compressors are different than analog modeled EQs because they are simply more complex effects with specific, dynamic behavior that can be emulated, often successfully. Here is where I start to agree with many viewers who said they liked using their channel strip or analog EQ plugin because it just gives them what they want, with minimal fuss. And that's true with many of these analog model compressors. I know what I want to get when I insert an 1176 or an LA2A, and if it's done right, then I'm happy. Now, there are some sloppy clones out there of these desired compressors, and I think we can all usually discount them with our ears. We know when compression is good, because we nod our heads in satisfaction and move on to the next track. And that's all you need, really. Thanks for watching. Consider joining the channel to support future and better content. And like, subscribe, and comment below. I love hearing from you, and use my affiliate links to support the channel as well. Until next time, mix well.